Hey, this is Jason Morris with Real Estate Agents That Really Work, and I've been working on a series, and this is the second one on how you get more listings, and it goes along with my book, 53 Strategies to Get More Listings. It's available on Amazon in Kindle version or paperback. But one thing I want to tell you about is something that it's kind of unique. We don't hear about it a lot in the real estate business is is prospecting municipality list pending filings. Okay, first I want to tell you guys what it is. Okay, these are problem filings, and it's all public record. This is where somebody's violated either a city or county or town ordinance. Most towns and cities, they have ordinances that all property owners have to follow, and sometimes it's kind of dumb things, but sometimes it's a little more serious things. So it's basically the town is getting ready to sue them, and they're getting ready to start levying fines. Now, each state and township is different. You might have to do some research to figure out what the customs are in your area and what things you have to do a little research to figure out how to find these. You can probably contact a title company and they can get them for you kind of cheap. But most of these violations are public records. So depending on your city, these could be a gold mine. What I've learned is figuring out problems in the real estate industry is where there's a ton of money to be made because most agents are just too lazy to figure things out. And typically, most people within your local government, they're pretty helpful. If you call them and say, hey, where can I find this? Or lots of times they might even just tell you on the phone. But probably the best way to do it is contact your local, whatever title company your attorney is using or whatever title company you use. Um, Now, most of these filings, they're for things like their building code violation. Maybe they added a deck on the back and they didn't pull permits, or maybe, I've seen some locally in my market where the place needed to be painted and it was really, really need to be painted. And they're just violations where the property either they done something illegally to it or the property's just not kept up. And what happens a lot of times is somebody moves away, they get old and they're not physically able to do it. They lose their job or they have some random issue and they just don't have the money to keep the place up. And the crazy thing is now the city wants to charge them for it. And in most areas, if it's bad enough or goes on long enough, the city can actually condemn the property. And I mean, nobody really wants to deal with condemned properties because you basically have to get it back up to the building code and go through a process to get all the issues worked out. But typically these are pretty motivated sellers, I find. You got to do a little homework to track them down, especially if they don't live in the home. Sometimes, I mean, you're not going to get a lot of these. I mean, you might get, well, I guess it depends on what city you're in. If you're in a city that's, really large like Philadelphia or Los Angeles, there's going to be tons and tons of them. But most, your average size city of, 50,000 people, you're probably not going to get a lot of these that go this far because most people, when they, um, when they, get one of these things, they try to take care of the problem. Most people don't want any problems. They'll try to take care of the problem when they get a warning. But when it keeps going is when the city decides to start levying fines, and then they actually get ready to sue the person. But even if so you're not going to get a whole lot of these. So you might get like 10 or 15 a month that you want to track down. Or you might only get 3 or 4 a month that you want to track down. So I found sometimes you go over to the house. Sometimes you go over there and you find a for sale by owner sign in front. Um, Sometimes you go over there, grass is waist high, and you knock on the neighbor's door, and the neighbor wants somebody to buy the house because they're tired of looking at the eyesore. So lots of times it's the neighbor that actually turned them in to the local county or called the local county saying, "Hey guys, you got to do something. This house is falling apart next door to me." Or my, they had a little dispute, so the neighbor called him and said, "Hey, my neighbor added a deck on the back of his house and didn't pull a permit." So and those things, if they added a deck on the back of their house, they could probably go through the proper channels and get that worked out. But even if the property is condemned, there's a lot of investors that want to buy these sort of houses. When you find one of these houses, it's been condemned, It's easy to find investors. I mean, just look on Craigslist. I mean, that's a great place. Um, drive around looking for the "We Buy Houses" signs and calling those guys. Usually, some of them have money, some of them don't. Some of them just looking to sign properties. Start going to your public auctions, the foreclosure auctions and stuff. Usually, they're held publicly at the courthouse. Start going to those, and you can find some investors and stuff. Start looking through your MLS at recent solds for people that purchased cash, and call them up. There's certain areas. Every town has those certain areas that are primarily rentals. Look for sales in those areas that are cash. In the last year, call them up and say, hey, do you buy property? Do you buy rental property? Stuff like that. You can find buyers for these sort of things pretty easily. But that's another way you can go out there. You can prospect, and there's probably I'd be willing to bet that there's nobody in your market that are tracking down those leads, and they're tracking down those listings, because a lot of them, there are a couple of extra steps. They're not the low hanging fruit. Expires and for sale owners sometimes are the low hanging fruit that everybody's going after. Municipality filings and less pendants filings, I almost guarantee you there's nobody going after those in your market. So I've got 52 more of these strategies. They're in my book. It's available on Amazon. It's 53 strategies to list more homes. And you can buy the Kindle version or the paperback version there.